What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer doing one more deep dive into Spright Melffy. This is the deck that I think I'm the most invested in when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Not because it's like competitively viable, but because it's like the most competitively viable deck that I like to play, which probably says a lot about the decks that I play in Yu-Gi-Oh. But I wanted to showcase a few matchups against Tier, one against Flu, one against Tenyi, and then I have like I think one more against like Trains or something. Just another look. I mean, there's some new tech choices that I'll showcase in here, but I think this is the most relevant one. Not sure what happened here. Okay, so this one doesn't trigger. Mudora's nothing. I'm not sure why he didn't go for Merly, to be honest with you. I mean, I guess I have Red up, and he just, like, didn't want to play into it, but I still have the materials here, so that was a misplay. And you kind of have to, depend on it, and that's kind of the fun of playing like a deck that's not Tearlament because your entire goal is to beat it when you shouldn't. So when you play against a bad pilot, it's got to be frustrating for them knowing that like you're playing Melffy Spright and beating them. But I want to buy the second real life, but and I could. It's just like the ban list comes out in a month, and I just want to see what happens because I think it's blue. Blue's like $45. So if I buy a playset, which I could if I really wanted to, but if I did, then and it gets limited to one, I'll just wasted like almost close to $100, and that's just like lame. No one wants to waste $100. But my general strategy when playing against Tearlament is this: my goal always is to stop the first mill, like force your opponent to have the extender first, and that's like obviously like pretty good. Most of the time they will, but my thing that when I've been playing against Tearlament is, and this is like a lot of testing just in general, it's better to hand trap Tearlament twice than it is to let their play go through and have like Dark Ruler. I just think that they're not always going to have the most gas hands ever. Sometimes they'll have cards that are stuck and they can't do anything about it. And if you can just do whatever you can to stop that, right? You imperm the Kit Kalos, and I love ashing like the Agito or something, like whatever gets sent to the graveyard. Because then what ends up happening is you end up being in like simplified game states where it comes down to them activating 1 mil a churn. And then that's when you can really start to, go off. This card's really crazy against Swordsoul, like specifically. It's a decent card, it doesn't really negate monster effects, but it might as well. So cards like his Kelbeck. Kelbeck is just gonna boop. There you go. No more Kelbeck. Tearlament names banish every single time, and that's what the benefit of this card is, right? It banishes the monster, so it's like better than negating it because it doesn't even go to the graveyard. So we're just gonna go to the battle phase here, and see, this is what I'm talking about. This is where you want Tearlaments at because when they activate a mill once, like when they only have 2 or 3 cards in their hand, well, more than likely, like if you stop that first mill, like their turn's over, and then the deck just becomes like not that good. Like the cards by themselves don't really do much at that point. Wally's incredible, just 2 bodies from the deck. So there goes Agito. Unfortunately, I can't stop that, right? There's nothing I could have done to stop this mill. He ends up milling Bestial, the planet. He has another Mudora, which is fine, and Havness, but that's cool. Like if he goes for Havness, all I do is negate it, and he can't do anything about it. I think he's gonna banish it himself, but like okay, well you've just defeated the purpose anyways. Penny's a quick effect bounce, right? Because of Melffy or Mary Melffy's. See you later. So that's obviously just like really really cool that you can like if when they're going into Charmer, they are in ultimate desperation mode. Like that is their last line of defense. So if you make them lose 2 materials, especially just like that, right? The 2 materials that go into the link and they have nothing on their board. Like you literally, I don't think at this point can do anything because of Berserker. And that's obviously pretty decent. Like it's even possible, right? There's some rogue strategies, if you wouldn't even want to call this rogue. There are some casual strategies that like literally can't beat tier. Like it's like statistically impossible. So the fact that this deck can at least like win every other duel, I think that's pretty neat. So these are the top 2 tech choices that I have added. Kerass, which is a level 2, so it can be summoned from the deck, and Kerass can certainly go into double Dragon Lords, and that's like kind of the whole point. Because I was thinking, you can easily go into Herald of the Arclight during your opponent's turn, which is good. It's an Omni negate. It's also insane against Swordsoul, or Swordsoul, I guess you can say, but most importantly, Tearlament, right? Any card sent from deck to graveyard is banished instead. From hand is banished instead. So it's like this macrocosmos, but if they could just normal summon Rhino, you just lose. They normal summon anything. It's literally 1,000 attacks. So I'm like, there needs to be a new tech card in here that can help me, stop that. And it's like kind of right in front of my face this whole time. I'm playing a beast deck, with the Melffys. They're all beast warriors. So what you can do is you can bring out a card like Kerass. Now this is like an even more different tech choice, Arabellum. And if it attacks your opponent directly, they have to discard a random card. So that's obviously like decent. I don't know. This could just be any level 2, to be honest with you, and that's probably just better. And you have the choice. It's just sometimes when I have these super extended lines, like this is crazy. So this just helps you go into really just a 1-card Naturia Beast. I could have brought out another level 2 and gone into Gigantic. I'm going to be able to anyways because I had Starter. So this is like extremely full extended. So, is playing this not super brick, but kind of a brick worth it in the deck? I don't know. It might be. I'm going to do some more testing, but I think it's a really good tech choice. Like, Naturia Beast is crazy, especially if your opponent, if their big play going first is Planet or something, whether it's Cashier or Tearlament, they just simply cannot activate it. Scream can't activate. Like, those things are very important. But I can go into Spright now. I can bring out a red. This card's crazy. This engine's incredible. Like, my hope is that they just like limit Starter and like semi-limit blue or something crazy like that. Because then this deck would be like 99% intact, or maybe they go limit on both. Although I don't know. I think it's just fun. I don't think this deck is insane. I just think it's extremely, above average. Like this is the best end board that I can produce. Like this isn't extremely meta defining. It's good, right? My opponent can activate spells. It's a bounce. I'm gonna bring back a monster negate. These pieces are just supplementary pieces. I'm just talking like purely from the engine. Obviously, if you open up 2 hand traps plus full end board for any deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, like you're probably gonna win. But I don't know. This deck is extremely fun to play. So he's gonna go for a Guido. So I think I talked about this in the first matchup. I always stop the first mill. My opponent is forced now to have something good. It's not going to be Planet. I know that. So I'm kind of keeping everything in front of me. But once your opponent starts milling, then they chain block you and you lose. And that's obviously not good. He's going to normal summon his Rhino Heart. I'm just going to go ahead and negate there. He's going to chain Mudora to shuffle some stuff back. That's fine. Who cares? It doesn't do anything. And I'm going to go ahead and bounce that, right? I already spent Spright red, and I can just bring it back. Like, Alpha's incredible. And I do think that Kerass has made, like, the biggest difference, though. The card is insanely good. And I don't know why I wasn't playing them. I'm literally playing Melffys. So, I have one more against Spright, or Tearlament, excuse me. Triple Tactical Talents is really, really good against Tear. It's almost always going to be live, right? Your opponent's going to have a Bestial. Your opponent's going to have Havness. One of those things. Yeah. This is a bad. I shouldn't have done this, right? Like, I need to just... I don't know. Here's the thing, right? Like, this card doesn't just search. This isn't just a searcher. It, like, does so much more. So, like, I almost feel pressured to ash that. And on top of that, I do also have an evenly matched and triple tactical talent. So, like, I don't know. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate he had both. Because if he didn't, I don't know. I guess he would have had a mill 5 anyways. So it seems like my opponent has everything. I'm curious to see how he messes this up. Like, you feel like from this position, there's no possible way, right? He grabs Solik, and I'm like, don't you grab Crime? Like, isn't that objectively better? He's going to grab Merly. Kit Kalos, the little yoinky splinky, as it's called. Mill 8. Crazy. Stack's insane. I can't wait till it hits the ban. Like, so I actually don't like fundamentally hate Tearlament. I think it's fun, kind of like fun to play against because there's so many elements to it. The problem is it just has too much. Like, it just needs to be slowed down significantly, right? It's just the millers are just insane. You shouldn't be able to mill through your entire deck so quickly. This is good, although I feel like there's definitely no way you can't finish with the one that negates special summons, but off the top, he ends up getting Carrot, which is actually pretty decent, right? When it gets detached, that's obviously very good. But, yep, he did not have any monster negates there. So, evenly match is pretty good. Pretty good, especially if your opponent does not have Crime, which for whatever reason he didn't search that, I'll never know. It is Tearlament, so he's not done, obviously. And here goes Root Kalos. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use this effect. He's going to activate. I'm going to negate there. And I'm going to grab a Jet, right? I just get to keep my combo going, but he doesn't get to do so much. And I'm going to shuffle that back. Isn't that crazy, like, how good Tearlaments are? Because I feel like that was definitely, like, objectively the best play that I could have done. But he activated it in hand. I have to negate it. And then it's like, well, this card is still crazy. Like, I can't allow him to stay in his hand. So I have to use triple tactical talents to shuffle it back instead of drawing two. Like, I don't need it because my hand is so good. But, you know, it just showcases, like, that's just one card in Tearlament. Like, that's how good that card is. And there's, like, 6 of them. Every card in Tearlament is good. He's going to go ahead and negate with Root Kalos. And I'm going to go for Wally. Yeah, so I'm dumb. Very bad misplay. My opponent is actually going to be the president of Misplay. He's going to be the CEO of Misplay Incorporated. So I forgot that I used Evenly Matched. What I should have done was go... I mean, I don't know. I think it would have been good to go into Soul Sweeper. Although, I guess this is coming back anyways. The more I think about it, I'm not sure. Because it's not like this card is doing anything like against my board. He attacks into this. I get to swap out 2, which is really good. And if he attacks into this, like, he has to bounce it back. Like, he has to get something good off the top. Well, there's, like, a lot of those. But even if it's just, like, Druis Worm or something like that. Or, like, any of the Bestial monsters, it's not really doing anything. It would have to be, like, Rhino Heart or one of the tiers. Now, it obviously could be. But if I get lucky enough, it won't. And he's going to go into the battle phase. Doesn't read, right? This is where the misplay comes in. If this card is attacked, if it's not destroyed, it bounces back to the hand. And these are 2 extra deck monsters. It's not a once per turn. How do you let this happen? Like I'm bad at Yu-Gi-Oh! You know what I mean? But, like, I don't think I would do something like I'm sure I've had some times, like, especially in the beginning, where I would attack into this. And you're like, oh, shoot. Like, it bounced my hand. I'm stupid. I didn't read. But I definitely wouldn't do it twice. And my opponent just scoops. And I had Wally, too. So if my opponent started playing, like, he's done for it. I get a pop and a bounce, like, right off the bat. But I thought that was just, like, super hilarious. All right, here is that game against Tenyi. Looks like a weird hand, but it's actually really good. Like, Kerass is pretty good in the hand because you play so many beast monsters. It really just ends up being a level 2 extender, which could make a big difference. And, like, at the end of the day, like, even though, like, these are just level 2s, like, this is such a general, like, literally level 2 monsters. Like, very rarely do you get that kind of archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! I can search Jet. Jet can search me Starter. Like, that's awesome. None of what I did went through Blue or Jet, right? Just going, like, hard making Spright, such a good, like, you know you're going to have a crazy end board if you're in that position. Now I can just bring back Kerass, right? Go into Sprint. I can dump Carrot for next turn. And I also, like, you need to have the beast in the graveyard, obviously. And I think I'd used the wrong link material. I was like, oh, shoot. Like, I needed to have these in the graveyard. So what I did was I went for Sprint, and then Sprint dumped, you know, Carrot. And that's, like, just a generic thing to help me for my next turn, while also getting my beast into the graveyard so I could banish them. And I had Wally in my hand, too. This is insane. Like, this end board is super, super good. Unless your opponent has Dark Ruler no more, for example. I still have Imperm, which I guess is pretty cool. Like, you can't be too mad. It's got the shiny stuff. YG Omega is a really nice program. It just crashes a lot. I don't know if I'm the only one who does that. And normally it only crashes on my MacBook, but I've noticed that with Omega. It kind of drives me crazy. It lets you get back into the games, which is kind of cool, but it takes forever. But he's going to be able to get over my board here. He actually bounced Wally back to my hand, which is the worst thing you could have done. But when you're playing a rogue deck, that is kind of the benefit, that your opponent doesn't really know how to play against Melffy. So something would be like, oh, it'd be so obvious. If he stopped me here, my turn would be over. Your opponent might not know that because it's such a weird deck. Yeah, it feels like my opponent had everything. Dark Ruler no more, Nibiru, Forbidden Droplets, pretty good. But Triple Tackle Talents is also a very, very good card. All right, I can now end phase Wally, right? This can't be targeted, which is super fantastic, which is going to turn into 2 cards. But Shuda is going to go ahead and target Elf, so I'm just going to Elf summon back. And he's going to try to banish this card. I'm going to go ahead and negate that, and then just dodge all of it, which is awesome. Like, he tried to... I really just did, like, some break move, or some break dancing moves right there. Just, you know, tip-tapping around all my cards. Special summoning, bouncing, everything. And this is, like, you know, the super benefit of this deck. One card, like, it's not just like E-Telly, it's crazier. Other guys, it's like kind of like Xiamen. It's just the same thing. It's just so good. Sinjin is unbelievably useful. Just makes every deck like so much better. Like Melffy's by itself is atrocious, but this just makes it so much more usable. But the Melffy stuff is huge. Like it's a very good engine with this deck. I'm surprised more people don't play this, to be honest with you. All right, and let's just keep going on here. I think I want to show, this is against Floowandereeze, and I'll show the other ones. I think the other ones are against Trains. All right, it always sucks to see this in your hand because, like, it's dead. You cannot trigger its effect. Now, there is one Melffy that special summons from hand, but it's like most of the time you're just never going to want to use it. So it would feel like an extra brick. It wouldn't be worth it. But my opponent starts with D-Shifter. It's fine. Like, most Melffy, or most Spright side decks play D-Shifter. So they can play around it pretty easily. So I have two like good forms of interruption, and then I also just have Wally, which is crazy, which is also very good. And I actually had Imperm too. D-Shifter double evenly. But if your opponent's gonna hit you with evenly matched, and your only card is Wally, like that's probably the best card in the game that you can just be the only card that you leave on the field, because it literally equals like 2 interruptions. I thought when I saw map, I was like, I'm going to throw up. But he didn't have any names in his hand. I was like, oh, thank goodness. But he normal summons Crow. I tried to activate it, and he had Ash. Literally every hand trap. But what I like about this duel the most is that my opponent activated D-Shifter, and I didn't say, okay, pass. I played, put up a good end board, and even after my opponent broke that end board, I had an insane amount of follow-up. So everything's just a one-card play starter, right? Rescue Cat, unbelievably powerful. Rescue Cat is such a like double-edged sword, because like it's not a level 2. If your opponent imperms it, sometimes you just get stuck if you have like Spright names in your hand. Okay, let's take a look at my matchups against Train. God, I love Train. I still don't know what it does. Every time I play it, this one makes a little bit more sense. There's like a big 4,700 attack body. I think that's what it is. It's like literally something insane to bring it out and basically kill you. But I don't know. I don't know what else this deck does. Yeah, it's this card right here. But all I know is that normally if you stop Gear Frame, at least in my experience, like they can't really do anything. Or maybe just the way he's playing the deck. I don't know. This is just a random card. I don't know why he's playing this. Evenly Match. I think it's always been good. Like I don't think Evenly Match ever stopped being good. Except maybe like for the 1,000 negate formats where like you need a Dark Ruler or Nibiru. But anytime Omni negates just are not super present in Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. And when they are, they're like super good. There's no more 1,000 negate boards. It's like 1,000 interaction boards, it seems. Which I think is like definitely better. All right, so after you hit your opponent with evenly match, you just kind of go crazy. I always love bringing that out. Like, just bring out Wally. So good, you know. And when your opponent starts playing, like, this is 2 interruptions, plus smashers, plus my opponent, you know, I'm just going to bring out Wally. So anytime he tries to do anything, attack, or, you know, if he wants to summon a monster, he is done for. And smashers, this card is the MVP. This is just the, like, oh, I need to get rid of that one thing I can't get rid of. And it's searchable, which really helps the power level of this deck. Very fair card too, right? You have to give up a lot of advantage for it. But the effect makes it worth it, right? Non-targeting banishment is crazy. All right, and then now I can just start doing all my Melffy stuff. Just getting card advantage and just getting way ahead of my opponent. Like, Sprite's good at getting ahead of your opponent. Melffy is also, and that's like definitely the strength of the deck. Yeah, there's lots of cool little tech cards because the low synchro pool is like really bad. Like, there are, like, almost no good level 6 synchro monsters, like, in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is easily one of them, and it also, like, works really well. So, cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects where you have 2 or more monsters in your graveyard with the same original type and attribute. Earth Beast monsters, right? That's pretty much the entire deck. So, I'm going to fill that requirement, but also I can do that. I can banish those kinds of monsters and send cards to the graveyard, and that obviously could be the difference of... That's something that you want to have access to in a deck, right? Especially when you have a card in your opponent's graveyard, like Citadel, that says when your opponent destroys a machine monster by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card, and then he's going to just, like, Raigeki me. Versus now, well, I sent it to the graveyard. I didn't destroy it, so... It's also just a good, like, body. I don't know, it's not a towers, but... If you go into a really late game situation, your opponent has kind of expended their resources, especially when it comes to the extra deck, and you summon this guy out, they might just, like, deck out if they can't destroy it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of why I like that. Very, very versatile. Not good, you know, to summon during your opponent's turn most of the time, but it definitely has its utility. All right, and I should go ahead and get some attacks in here. And I think I'm going to turn this into Zeus, right? 2-pop Zeus that can't be targeted, right? You can't start the turn with Imperm. And if he does actually use anything, well, I have Zeus. He's going to go for that. I'm just going to go for Spright Red, right? Just another form of interruption. He's going to go for Meadow Cruncher. So the reason that I did it this way, right? Because, like, I knew this card was going to come out, but, like, I already know the last card in hand. He has nothing in graveyard that he can use. So I might as well trigger it now so that I can get rid of his Citadel so he can't bring it back, right? It's one more attack and he's done. So I kind of just forced his hand, right? I knew he was going to do this. This card has to target itself. So, oops, sorry. And I just have to change this to attack position. Look at this follow-up too. Pretty crazy. Like, I still, like, have a really good turn, but I didn't need it. All right, I'm going to show just one more against trains. The rest of this deck is, like, thinking of the deck as its entirety is, like, very cheap. The Melffy stuff's super cheap. Like, most of the Spright engine is too. I think it's only, like, you know, a couple $100 probably. But if you already have, like, the core, you know, like all your hand traps and stuff, the deck's probably like $100. Depending on if you want to get 3 Spright Blue. This playset is more expensive, I think, than the rest of the deck combined, which is kind of gross. Started off with Rescue Cat. That's obviously very good. And this time I did bring out a level 2. And you can just bring out 2 Wallies. Like, you're almost always going to only bring that effect out once. So if you can just kind of group them together and just bring it back, that's pretty good. Catty, you want to have it too, because you want to be able to search multiple times, right? Penny and Hoppier Squadron kind of do the same thing, but you want to have both of them. It's going to trigger everything. So I'm just going to use like 1,000 cards in sequence. Yeah, I think if trains have like no bodies on board, they just can't play. And if he did have that emergency call, he would have started with it. So this card lets you bounce to your opponent's hand. Such a cute card art. And I can go ahead and go for Puppy. That tags out if I wanted to. But I think he's going to add something or send it to the graveyard. But I'm just going to go ahead and pop this card. And I think that's it. And I can go into Penny now. That can go into Herald. And that's why, like, this is obviously, like, super, super good. You know what I mean? It's good now that you can't target it. And also, if you have Kerass, now you can bounce it to the hand. So this card, like, really is a floodgate. Or in an emergency, you know, an Omni Negate. But I saw that he was starting to put his back row down because I could feel his turn ending. So all I have to do is have 2 negates for it. And I do. I can turn those into Sprin, right? I think I can just, like, threaten to send, I don't know, Cyber Stein, right? And then he's just done. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Yep. So he did have 2 traps there. It was Torrential Tribute and Dogmatic Punishment, but I had the answers for both. I could search a Smashers, which is just really good now that I'm just going to be, like, overwhelmingly in front of him. Yeah, by, like, a large margin. Showcases how fun this deck is. But let me know what you guys think about this long extended look in the comment section down below. Other than that, that's going to do it for today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.